high. We're here to talk football, Austin FC, alright. ZG and E will take you on this ride, week by week, side by side. It's section 1, 2, 3, we're the rowdiest in town. The Pirates, Damon, Uncle Dave, and Big Fudge all around. We sing our songs, we chant as one. Through thick and thin, the match day's just begun. In the North End, we stand together. Through every game, through any weather. From the first whistle to the final blow, the North End will never let go. Under the lights of Q2, our home, our sacred ground. In green and black, we fight, our voices loud and proud. Trio sees magic, Bacardi speed, Stuber saving grace. With every goal we score, the lights turn their day, it's our place. So knows the mastermind, building our dream. Dan rules everything around me, as he strengthens our team. Let Rodo cook, he's got the perfect recipe. Austin FC, our heart and soul forever will. In the North End, we stand together. Through every game, through any weather. From the first whistle to the final blow, the North End will never let go.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome into a Friday afternoon emergency live stream here in the North End. My name is Zach Graham, your host here in the North End, solo right now. It's the middle of a work day. We will have a couple friends joining us along the way, but E stuck in meetings. So unfortunately, no E today, but we have a lot to talk about, my friends. Seeing everybody file in here. Lewis saying, what in the Rodo just happened? Mason said, if only the fans would vibe as hard as this song. I don't know, man. I think the fans vibe pretty hard. We try to bring our own vibe in the North End. Nico did well in his first season in Dallas, says Robert. Profe, love the video. Profe, we might see Profe in here shortly. Let me go ahead and send out the links that I need to, but I want to get into all of this because it seems like, from my perspective, what I have seen over the last hour or so from fan reactions, that this is less than ideal. I guess comes in a little bit lower than the general consensus of the expectation, right? The names that we wouldn't believe. I saw multiple jokes already saying, yeah, it was a name I wouldn't believe on the wrong end of that. I see Evil Mopac tweeting out some Nico Estévez memes, or Estévez, I think is how you say that. You guys, if you're North End listeners, you know I'm not great with the pronunciations. We try our best here. Let me get this sent out. Get a real fan in here. I could tip you off to who might be jumping on first. While we wait, let's jump in. I want to get to the comments as well. But let's go ahead. Let's go through this press release because we at first get the report from Tom Bogert, right? That the deal is done, that the announcement is coming soon, that Nico is going to be the new head coach. We can get a couple zooms here for those of you watching live or on the replay. Let's go through this. Austin FC announced today Nico Estévez as the club's new head coach. Estévez brings MLS, La Liga, and international coaching experience to Austin, right? We saw him as an assistant, or kind of tagging along, rather, with Pochettino's staff a couple weeks ago here in Austin. 44 years old, bilingual, native of Valencia, Spain, right? If you watch the video that the club put out, little 2-minute video kind of introducing Nico, had some quotes from Rodo on there. Very similar to the video we saw of Rodo when he was announced by the club. So Coach is going to join the team after completing his duties, I guess, right? Not necessarily tagging along. He's still with Pochettino's staff for the upcoming international window in November. And he had this to say in the press release. Coach said, Austin is a vibrant city with fantastic music, food, culture, and most importantly, a fan base that is incredibly passionate about soccer and Austin FC. And he's going to find out. I think that passion was one of the main reasons why coming to Austin is so exciting for me. I'm looking forward to growing the team on the field while getting to know our supporters on a personal level. I want to thank Rodolfo and the entire club for this opportunity. And I want to skip down to what Rodo said here before we get to the comments. Rodo said, we are delighted to have Nico join Austin FC as our second ever head coach. Our search process was extremely detailed, and we feel he is someone that ticks all the boxes. He is highly ambitious, has experience in MLS, and is familiar with the culture in Texas. We believe he will be an excellent fit for this club and community, both on and off the field, and we'd like to wish him and his family a warm welcome to Austin. I guess for me, and we'll bring in our good buddy here, one of the realest fans that I know in a second. For me, it's underwhelming. I think I talked about with E kind of a few weeks back when Josh was let go, was like, I kind of wanted to see, with my lack of global football knowledge, I kind of wanted to see a name that I didn't know, especially not a name that I know from MLS and not a name that I know from one of our Texas rivals. But joining us now from the Verde Pendant podcast is Paul, real fan TM. Paul, welcome back to the North End, sir.
What's going on?
You had a take in one of the many group chats that was blowing up on my phone over the last hour, actually looking towards our other Texas rival and their most recent coach hiring of Ben Olsen, I think 2 seasons ago. So before we get into that, how you doing, man? It's good to see you.
Hey, man, happy Friday, brother. It's been an awesome week for Austin FC news. You know, I feel like every day this week there's just been, little crumbs here and there. And so I think to cap it off with this hire, some folks might not be super elated, but I, on the other hand, it's a Friday, man. You can't ruin this vibe for me. So let's get it.
Yeah. And hey, like Mason pointed out in the comments, kind of first thing here on the stream was, this is a very short wait. And I think it makes sense that the hiring comes so soon with all of the contract extension news that we got this week. Like it makes sense that Rodo was getting close on the coach while he's also firing these decisions on some of the players that maybe we did or didn't think would be hanging around through their options. So I want to touch on some of the comments here before we get too deep in it. Let me catch up. We appreciate everybody tuning in here. Again, in the middle of your Friday, most people still working here, including yours truly, but we'll take a little lunch break to talk about everybody's favorite team. Mason saying I am whelmed, right? And so I think that's a very fair reaction, right? I think that pretty much lines up with how I felt like seeing this notification pop up on my phone next to me. Was like, oh, well, there it is, I guess.
Yeah, that's nice. To be fair, Zach, that is the life of an MLS fan. If you don't live in Los Angeles or Miami right now, is you're going to get a lot of whelmed, because that's just kind of the nature of this league. But I think this is whelmed on the positive side again.
Sure. For me, yeah. Well, and also, I think we might have to be adding San Diego into that list of teams because just in the last hour, rumors that they have reached out to Kevin De Bruyne, which again, that's a name we want to see pop up around Austin. But that's right. To your point, that might never be a reality for us, or maybe just not in the near future. But I want to talk more about what you brought up in our chat about Ben Olsen, right? And kind of compare and contrast where Houston was 2 years ago, what they've done since then, and our trajectory, which has been in the opposite direction over that period of time. So again, I know you're more familiar with that Dynamo franchise. We don't have to get into it.
Yeah, no worries.
But this is part of the reason why, again, you think you have a little bit more of a positive spin on this than maybe the consensus is so far.
Yeah, so I think to start off with some context, I think looking back at the Houston Dynamo, for those that had been following that franchise over the mid, 2010s or so, it was a very lackluster organization. They hadn't met the playoff line in over, I think it was like 9 years or so before they first got in 23. And so it was one of those things where it was kind of a coaching carousel, so to speak, but never realizing that the ownership had never really fully invested in a proper roster. And so you look at what we're doing here in Austin, where, the first couple of years we get into a little bit of a roster quagmire here. And now Roto has come in and is basically having to undo all of that while also trying to figure out, how do we satisfy the coach's needs for, this flexibility with the players that he has. And so that's why I'm just so keen on taking a look at down the street, like what Houston is doing, because that's almost verbatim like what they've got going on. They've got new ownership coming in, making really big investments in the club. And you bring in Ben Olsen, who wasn't doing a whole lot with DC United for a time, takes a spell off. I think it's almost like a year and a half or 2 years off from coaching, dabbles a little bit in NWSL, and then gets the call from Pat Onstad over at Houston. And, a lot of the fans there, if you look back at the Twitter timeline at that time, they were acting exactly like Austin fans are right now with Nico. And it only took a short bit of time, probably within the first half of the 23 season, they're competing for Open Cup, and they end up with that trophy, by the way, and then make the playoffs for the first time in 9 years. That's cool. And then, they continue to replicate that this season as well. So I get the concern, the frustration, what have you. There's a lot that we can probably get into, but I don't know, man. This is MLS, brother. Anything can happen. And so I'm just going to choose to look on the positive things that can happen. So,
yeah. And again, I'm not going to tell anybody that they shouldn't be, whelmed with the name value of Nico. But I think that was great perspective for me kind of in the early reaction period of this. Yeah. Was like, I'm old enough to remember Houston going through that period and, winning that trophy, right? Open Cup or not, right? I don't care. We're looking for a trophy that is not called Copa Tejas, right?
Bingo. Yep.
And they got that in a similar situation. And I think, I think you and I maybe agree on I think Nico's coming in here probably with a better roster in place than Houston had 2 years ago.
Exactly. Yep. And that's a big plus too, because, you look at some of the pieces that he was working with in Dallas, a young Alan Velasco, Sebastian Driussi is just a Charizard to that Charmander, so to speak, because he's the younger version of that. But there are some pieces in here where I think Nico is gonna have his work cut out for him in terms of defense, but on the offense, I think outside of a couple of wingers, he's got some options there. So I'm excited to see how that goes. And yeah.
Well, getting back to the comments here in the chat, and we can go ahead and pull this off the screen for the moment. Rob said he's going to reserve his comments until March. Roto hasn't made a dumb signing yet, and I think I definitely agree with that. Everything is not the house is not on fire to me here. I think it's just that and I think rightfully so. We all want to get our hopes up and our expectations up, especially when Roto says names you won't believe.
Yeah.
I guess maybe that would be my biggest critique of Roto at this point is you can pull back on that, man. I don't think that's helping you unless you're bringing that makes people think Pep, right? Or some some name of that nature.
I feel that. Yeah, that's a definitely that's a big concern that I'm starting to also feel as well, where it's a little bit of that managing the expectation based off the communication that he's giving out. But again, I just go back to this is MLS, this is Austin, salary caps are a big thing. And unless we're able to clear out a bunch of space to bring in a KDB, I'm not really expecting the world, unfortunately. So
Robert saying, I said less than ideal. He says, my wife heard you say that and said, really, you think? But hey, we're all going through it here on a Friday. Good to see P. Mike in here. Austin FC 2.0. Yes, sir. Blue Button says, Nico should be given some time to see what he can do. Underwhelmed now, but maybe not later. Again, I think that's good perspective to have.
Yeah. And if I can just add a couple of things here, I think it's important to, I'm obviously going to frame this in the positive, but looking at, fan manager relations where, we could all kind of see that Josh wasn't maybe the most outgoing in terms of wanting to reach out to fans and stuff like that. Whereas even in the 2-minute video that the club released, Nico immediately jumps out, and that might be lip service, whatever. But at the same time, I think it's important that he communicates to fans that he does want to come out to the South End after games, and he does want to be able to have that connection, right? And so I think just from that perspective alone, fans should want to kind of get behind this guy and look forward to the off season, right? And look forward to those results. And then like some of the viewers were saying, waiting until March, right? That's a good April is a good timeline to kind of have a better understanding of how you're feeling about this signing.
Yeah, I agree. When I see our buddy Logan in here says, tell them about Nico utilizing inverted wingers in the half space to connect the attacking midfielders and the strikers while pushing the fullbacks on overlaps. And I don't know much about that, Paul, but you know who does? We've got Logan O'Quark here to talk tactics. Logan, welcome to the North End. Obviously, we have mentioned you plenty of times on the pod, but this is your first appearance. How you doing, man? And give us your take on this hiring.
I'm good. I know it's been a long time coming, so I appreciate it. I think you've seen my messages in our group chats so far. I've been definitely a Debbie Downer opposite than Paul so far on this, but I understand where he's coming from. Absolutely. I think whenever we look at it in the grand scheme of things, it's just very underwhelming in comparison to what we've heard or what Roto has been saying, or kind of the stature of what we believe as fans that this club is possible
aspiring to.
Yeah, and aspiring to, exactly. So I think that's where it comes from, the underwhelming and that initial like, all right, what are we doing? Why is this the decision? And I understand that reaction because I had the same one. But whenever you, as I put it, mostly funny, just trying to get Zach to talk about it, see what he was going to say about it, is the way that Nico sets up his team is similar in the way that Wolff did from that Berhalter coaching tree. But the process and how he does it and what they do is very different. The average positioning is very different. Where they utilize the ball in space is very different between the two of them. And I might not be the most qualified human being in the world to do this, but there are differences there and some that people are going to notice right away. And I put that inverted wingers connecting with attacking mids, strikers with overlapping fullbacks, because if you look at the average positioning, which I'm a psycho and I've gone through every game that Nico coached last year and looked at all the average positioning metrics, it looks like they're playing with like 6 midfielders, because both the wingers invert into the space. Whether it was Paul Areola, Alan Velasco, whenever he was healthy the year before, Ansa in there as well, and then a combination of different guys just due to the injury bug that they had at the beginning of the season. They compound the middle of the field, and you see guys like Tumasi at right back or Farfan at left back. They're just bombarding
making those runs.
The formation looks very different than what we're used to, where we normally have one fullback sitting at home at all times, where Dallas will not. They will send everyone forward, compact the middle of the field to bring guys into the middle so that they can then play the overlapping fullbacks, which is very different than how Wolff had us set up, right? It was possession-based, but it was to get overload on the wide areas, where Nico's was very much overloading the middle of the field to exploit the wide areas. So a little bit different there. I don't know if it's going to be better. I don't know if it'll be different than what we've seen the past couple of years. So maybe that's something to look forward to then there.
Yeah. Well, and I think one thing just aesthetically that I feel like a lot of fans kind of clamor for, especially ones like me who are looking at this stuff more on the surface level rather than having a little bit of a tactical background like both of you guys, like getting that play through the midfield and entering the opponent's penalty area through the middle rather than these crosses just lumped in time after time, I know that's been a complaint for many years. So it sounds like you're a little bit more confident that we could see some more of that. How do you think that will translate to the player personnel that we still have in Austin, if you have any ideas already?
See, I think that it's weird with our current roster build. I think they're going to have to do a lot of work to be able to get wingers that can actually play in the inverted spaces. I know that that O'Brien did it with him at FC Dallas, had his best career under him in that half space, but I don't see any of our other wingers being capable of playing in the half space like that. Bukhari is a touchline winger to the definition, right?
Yeah.
Finley, who knows if he's staying or going. I don't trust him in a half space coming centrally. Fadri, there is no way he is coming anywhere off the left-hand flank.
Yeah,
but this is where, and I've put this in our group messages plenty of times, where Driussi is going to be playing off that left wing and inverting, which he did his entire career before he arrived in Austin, where I think he will thrive. And I think John Gallagher may love Nico as his coach because his whole idea is to have bombarding fullbacks, and that's what John and Bureau love to do.
Yeah.
I think you look at the heat maps now this season, you already think Bureau is an attacking midfielder based on his average positioning. I think under Nico, it might be even more extreme. So it'll be fun to watch. I just don't know if we have the personnel to do it. And speaking of that, we need a striker, and we don't have a Jesus Ferreira that's able to play at that dual 9-10. Right. Best position. So finding a striker is probably going to be the most important signing that the team does this summer to make Nico's system work.
Well, we saw a couple days ago that rumor come across, right, about Martin Duksch from Werder Bremen over there. Again, probably butchering the pronunciation, and again, I'm not sure if that will actually come to pass. We'll wait until some more solid sources pick up on that, but it's not the first time we've seen during Roto's short tenure here, like the team be linked to some international strikers, right? You remember Miguel Borja from down in South America, like around this time last season, I want to say. And we've got those U22 spots that are open no matter what. So maybe you're looking for some elite winger help or some winger help with some elite upside rather in those U22 spots this offseason. But again, I think now, like, ultimately, now that we have the coach thing out of the way, now our attention over the next couple of days is going to fully turn to, okay, how is Roto going to fill this thing out?
Yeah. And you wonder how much did Nico have on the impact of the re-signing of the guys that we have over the last couple of days? Because it's not like Nico just signed the contract this morning. This has been going on for weeks.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe even while he was here in Austin a couple of weeks ago, maybe that's when it was really came together. I want to bring in our next guest here, and this will be, in my opinion, Profe, you could tell me if I'm wrong or not. Maybe the more emotional side of our reactions here. It is our buddy Profe making his North End debut, although you hear us talk about him frequently. Profe, on your lunch break here or conference period, maybe. How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm having a great Friday. I am all smiles because I get to jump in with y'all. I don't always get to participate in the stuff that happens in the middle of the day, but the timing worked out. Yes, from the classroom. This is definitely, I can't blur my background. I don't have anything set up. From the classroom.
We love it, man. In the trenches.
And I'm so happy that Paul and Logan came on to do the positivity and to do the tactics. I'm a little more excited to hear how Logan described Estévez's tactics. So I'm there. But let's start with you, Zach. Okay, Zach, and Logan knows what's up. There used to be an Argentinian player who played for Man United. His name was Carlos Tevez. So we say Tevez, and we hit that first syllable hard. So in Spanish, there's not a lot of words that start with the letter S and a consonant, like stairs or stars. They always have to put an E before it. So people like my dad can't say the word steroids. They have to say esteroids. They have to throw the E in front of it. It's just a thing that happens in Spanish. So that's what I need you to do is think about Carlos Tevez and then throw an S in front of it. The EX, Estévez. Nico Estévez. We'll see what we end up calling him. I'll
taking us to class on Friday, G. I love it.
I'm all about teaching people how to pronounce things.
I get messages from Profe about this after every other episode.
It's all right. That's shout out to Monterrey. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, but look, Paul and Logan brought the positivity and the tactics. Let me bring the criticism.
Let's do it.
Let me start with the hot take, the hot flaming S-word take. I'm at work, so I can't say cuss words. Who knows who hears? This is an indication of me that Precourt is still in the pocket of the U.S. Soccer Federation.
Very much.
This is a U.S. soccer hire. Like, look, this is all tinfoil hat fan fiction, hot take. But the relationship between MLS and U.S. soccer, like, we know that's a tight relationship. We know that they're back and forth. And Precourt had to work it to get to Austin, right? And maybe part of the deal was, yo, we need you to be hiring from the U.S. men's national coaching tree. And we get a lot of national team games. Shout out to the women last night. Q2 showed out for them beating Iceland. We get a lot of U.S. men's national team games. I know Pepe loves playing here. Shout out to FC Dallas and El Paso, Pepe. So I just think that we're stuck with the U.S. men's national team coaching tree here. And Estévez did a pretty good job of checking all the boxes, right? He's from that tree, okay. But he's from Spain, so he speaks Spanish, and that's something that Rodo hinted to. He's got experience coaching in Europe. He's not just from Spain. He coached there a little bit too. He's got MLS coaching experience, so he checks a lot of boxes. But guys, this is such an underwhelming pick, and it just feels like it's not fair to the fan base to be pining for someone outside of this coaching tree. We want to branch out. We wanted someone new so that we could plant and grow our own thing. I don't know how much more I can strain the tree and growing metaphor, but that's the real big downer here. I'll end my opening salvo with this question. Do we know how long his contract is, or that's something that we're never going to know, right?
I don't think it was in the press release. I imagine we'll know at some point, right? We're going to have a press conference tomorrow. I think that time is still to be announced, but we'll get media availability with Coach, and I think Rodo, of course, is going to be there too. So I imagine that is one of, if not the first question that is asked there, right? Because that's going to be maybe the most burning question from the fan base now is, how long have we committed to this?
Yeah. How long are we under the thumb of U.S. Soccer Federation and having to hire from that pool of candidates? That's a tinfoil hot take. There's probably no. I don't think there's
a whole lot of. I don't think there's a whole lot of tinfoil there, Prof. I think it's a valid concern, and I think those of us that follow the U.S. men's national team, and really kind of like the debacle of everything that's kind of blown up since Claudio Reyna was here. I mean, it's a valid criticism to go like, hey man, like there's a clear pattern here of the way you were saying that Uncle Tony had to work it in order to get this club here. That's almost kind of like a blessing and a curse, I guess, to be an Austin FC fan and to have this club here in our beautiful city. But, that said, it's like it is something different. And I can't help but harken back to the Ben Olsen comparison there, where we just needed a guy that needed a change of scenery, who wants to be in Frisco anyway. The dude loves walkable cities. So it's like, come through, and all the best, man. So we'll see. I think for me, I'm going to have a big issue if it is very similar to like this Josh Wolff system, where we're not opening hot out of the gate. And then at that point, that's where I'm really going to be kind of like what you're saying. Like, I would like to branch out of that tree, or out of that Berhalter tree, so to speak, and just try something completely, new to Austin, because this still feels very much in that same, that vein of Josh Wolff. So I hear you, Profe.
Yeah, I can totally see, again, like that's why a lot of the people who were the most vocal about Josh Wolff, departing the club, this just, again, on the surface, that was one of my first takeaways, was like, well, they're not going to be happy with this.
Right.
And again, like, how can any of us really be, again, I'm going to give him some time, right? Be patient with it. I'm trusting in Rodo with the coach hire, just like I do the player personnel. But again, it was just, I think my expectations were a little bit too high, right? Like George is in here saying, do we really think he had 25 names? Like, I don't doubt that there's 25 names, but if Nico is the one that checked all of the boxes for us, then I'm debating, like, names you couldn't believe is like, what did Lobar throw his name in, and that's why we can't believe it? Like, I don't know, I'm just going a little bit too far into the negative there. But Profe, like, what would you have liked to see kind of above and beyond what we got here? Like, were there names in your mind that weren't outlandish?
So the name that kept coming up in a lot of circles is Dome, the Spaniard who's coaching at Atletico San Luis. And he checked a lot of the boxes too, right? Experience in Europe, speaks Spanish. And then the one big box that is not checked here is like coaching success at like the first level, right? So Estévez, his experience is not like Valencia A team for like a hot minute, but mostly Valencia B team. But I wanted someone who has been the head coach at a top flight team and like at least 500, right? Like show me some success, sustained success at the highest level in a domestic league and at least break 500. And Estévez doesn't do that, right? He didn't coach at the highest level in Valencia, but the B team only. And then here in Dallas, like it's not a good record. So I was hoping to see someone who had some credentials beyond MLS, some credentials in the first tier, and outside of the USA. Like no disrespect to Estévez, we're gonna give him his chance. This hire says more about Rodo and Precourt than it does about him. Like he's gonna get his chance. He's gonna get his 2 years probably, and we'll see if he can get the players to play for him, because the interpersonal situation was one of the biggest reasons I felt like we weren't very successful. So give credit to him. But like, yeah, I was looking for someone with a little more gravitas, a little older, a little more experience, and a little more detached from MLS and US soccer. But that was all wishful thinking. The realist in me should have seen this coming. It's a little nerve-wracking that it's so early, because like, did we do our due diligence? Did we already have this in mind? And like, to be fair, we probably knew we were going to need a new coach, halfway through the season, right? Sure. We probably knew that they weren't going to make playoffs and that a coaching hire was going to have to happen. So maybe the search has been going on for longer than we know. For it being this early, it kind of makes me question if we did really consider all of the people that were out there. So I'm kind of worried about it moving too fast. But then there's a benefit to like piggyback off Paul and Logan and being positive, because he's hired so early. We'll be able to fill out the roster, get everybody on board, build the culture that we want, and really give them a shot. But yeah, I was hoping for like a big name. I don't know. I guess I was hoping we would pull Dame from Atlético San Luis. My dream coach just signed a contract at Tijuana. His name is Juan Carlos Osorio. He was a Colombian. He coached the Mexico's national team, and his claim to fame was like every game was a different formation. So he would have had us talking tactics every day, and it would have been crazy to see him. He's doing mildly successful at Tijuana. But yeah, I was hoping for someone from this hemisphere and someone who had already coached at the highest level, and we didn't get that. So we'll see.
Hey, Nico did coach 2 first-team games for Valencia whenever they went through that Gary Neville debacle where they fired.
Oh God, that's right.
Games. And he did go 500. He did go 500 with the first team. So
okay,
we appreciate
small sample size. Yes, good job, Logan.
Well, and Paul, I don't know if it was Lobar or Lojo yourself that said this in the group chat earlier, but it was like, if we're just gonna pick up another like Berhalter coaching tree guy, couldn't we have just tried to sign him before Chicago did? I don't know, like Berhalter, Nico, Josh.
You wouldn't give it up the GM duties though, right? Berhalter.
Oh, that's right. He wanted the full
duties.
Control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't think Roto's letting that go.
No, and I think then I would have my pitchfork out.
Well, it's also, I think Lobar was the one that said that why not just stick with Davey? Because at this point, Davey's had just about the same amount of exposure. Granted, not necessarily, with the first, head coaching gig and all that stuff.
There.
Yeah, but he seems like he's going to probably land on his feet somewhere really soon if that's what he wants to do. But I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up staying, because it is, again, kind of what everyone's been saying. It's close enough that he can work the system well. And I feel like the guys, the personnel at Austin, they like him, man. So like they played for him well under, that last decision day game. And so, Profe, I will say this, man. You did a good job of kind of bringing me down just a bit, because I will say I am an optimist, but I'm also a pragmatic optimist. So I understand full well that this is a gamble, but I'm with you, man. It's not all.
If there's a mistake we're gonna avoid, I hope it's hanging on to the coach for too long. So yes. I think that there's a lot of arguments. You could give Josh Wolff a 0 year for starting a new franchise club during a pandemic. That was rough. But by the 3rd year, it became really obvious that he shouldn't stick around. And me and Zach went back and forth on this on Twitter. But it's like Atlanta in the middle of the season fires their coach. And even though they're in a weaker conference and didn't get as much points as us, they make the playoffs. They win their playoff game. Now they get to play Messi. If we had fired our coach in the middle of the season, despite the fact that we're in a harder conference. Maybe that fresh face and that new reset button energizes and galvanizes the team to a playoff push, and it's us getting the home game against Vancouver instead of Portland, right? So if let's not repeat the mistake of holding on to the coach for too long. Let's give him his year. There's at least 1 year in there, and that second year is really contingent on how well that first year did. But let's not stick with the coach just because, and let's turn it over quickly if we need to. That's the mistake I hope we avoid.
I say if we're talking hypotheticals, though, I could do without the 5-0 ass whooping at home that Vancouver put on Portland there. That was all time. Logan, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Prof has brought me down a little bit too, which is needed. I think I went through like all the stages of grief whenever this was announced. Like, this is horrible. I can't believe it. I'm going to deny. And then I tried to look for reasons to make it a little bit better, thinking about how he approaches the game tactically, which Berhalter tree that he's going to possess the ball. And if people thought that Wolff liked to possess the ball, like, you have to watch Nico's teams play. Like, they're up in the 57 to 58% possession on an average for a season, where Wolff was probably around the 52 or 53%. Like, Nico wants the ball. And as much as this name might be cursed, Matt Doyle on part of MLS lore, his whole thing with Nico is field control. And that is what Nico does very, very well. He has field control, possesses the ball really well. So we're going to see a lot of the same things, but the positions that our players take up are going to be very different than what Wolff's did. And that'll be something that's interesting and a wrinkle. But knowing us and the fan base and myself, I will still find reasons to complain about it and nitpick at it as we go on. But it will be different and fun to look at for the first 3 or 4 games, unless we get results out of it.
I do want to give our buddy Krug's credit. When we started the stream, I think I saw the first ever Nico out was from Krug. So he has that.
He's
honor.
the start. There you go.
Yeah. And Joel was in here saying that Roto hired a guy that checks the boxes, but isn't high profile enough to not have to listen to Roto. So maybe he's shapeable. And I think for me too, it's also just the fact that, because if it was Josh Wolff coming in right now and we didn't have all the experience we had with Josh, we'd probably be saying similar things about him if we went from Nico to Josh. And I think the fact that this coach is coming in after Roto has already been here and established himself somewhat over the last year and a half is also an important thing to consider. What do you got, Profec?
I do think that it could be worse, right? Like, we could have gotten someone whose tactics are like Bill Curtin or someone from Philadelphia Union. Everybody knows, most people know how I feel about them. Like, so like Paul and Logan are telling I'm bringing them down, but y'all are bringing me up that they could be worse. The tactics could be negative, right? The possession tactics, that's still aligned with what we want. We want the ball. We want to control the tempo. And hopefully with the inversion of wingers and bringing in fullbacks and overflow in the middle, we get more shots and more creation, as opposed to just seeing what we've been seeing in the last couple of seasons, which is hope and pray that crosses find somebody, a non-existent striker in the box, and that we score. So it could have been worse, right? We could have gotten someone from the coaching tree that is a more negative presence in the tactics room, but we got someone who wants to hopefully keep the ball and score. So there's hope. Vanilla Mexican's dropping a quote, a thing that he says he's only going to give Nico 3 to 5 games. That's unreasonable, even for me. I think you give him half the season, right? I mean,
can I just interject here? I want to say, I think the other thing too we have to remember is that looking at tournament play, I think that was a big criticism for Josh Wolff during his time at Austin, where I feel like Nico at least did a good job, if I'm not mistaken, of taking Dallas at least a round or two out of whatever the first level that they entered in. And so I think for me and for other Austin FC fans that might be on the fence about how to feel, I would encourage folks to look at, hey, this is someone that won't play the kids away in Haiti or whatever, if it comes down to that. They'll take those games seriously, especially like for Open Cup and things like that. So, yeah, man.
It's a lot here. And then Krug said, just kidding, always pulling for our squad, no matter who's running it. That's right. For sure. I second that. Anything else for you guys on this hire? Obviously, we'll be back here in the North End for our regularly scheduled Sunday episode. Check out the Verde pendant. Hopefully this is not the last time we get graced with the presence of Logan or Profe. So you guys are, of course, welcome back anytime. I appreciate you guys, stopping by here in the middle of your workday. And Profe, since you are literally in your classroom, I'll let you sign off first.
All right. Well, I thought Logan was going to say something. Did you have something to hop in on, Logan?
I'll sign off first then. I'll let Prof go after me.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm one. It's a new era, which is great, and I think it is needed and refreshed. And I think if you go back to what I've been saying over the past couple of years, I was a big Wolff truther and like supported him to a fault in some ways and believed in what he was doing. And the past 7 or 8 months or so, I've done a complete 180 on that. And I, for one, am very excited for the new era and a new coach and just some new life and energy into the club and to the building. That being said, this is the first full off season with Rodo where he has maximum roster flexibility and capability. We have a ton of cap room. We have international slots. We have some senior slots coming off the books. We've already seen the ability and the business that he's been able to do during the summer window with limited roster space, and the signings have all been great so far. So I think new coach, bringing in guys that Rodo trusts and believes in due to his talent ID that we've seen has been successful so far, has me excited about the season. But check in with me in 2 or 3 games after the season starts.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll hold it. All right.
We appreciate you stopping by, Logan. Enjoy your weekend, man. We'll talk soon. See you, Logan.
My thing was going to be, I'm interested to see who the rest of his coaching staff is going to be, right? I don't know if that's going to get announced or not, but you brought on Davey Arnaud. One of my favorite words in Espanol football is cuerpo técnico. So the technical body is the literal translation, but it means your coaching staff. And I just think it's cool to call your coaching staff your technical body. So I want to see who fills out his cuerpo técnico, right? If he's going to bring in new assistants, or if we're doing, that'll tell me a lot about what change they thought was necessary. Because I think as much as we don't know the details, the interpersonal relationships and the culture inside the club wasn't working with Josh Wolff anymore. You could see that translate or not translate to tactics and performance on the field. Right. So we want to give Estévez a chance, right? Estévez a new chance, and we'll see if he does. If he keeps the same coaches, and maybe it was just a Josh Wolff thing. If he clears out the coaching staff and brings in his guys, then we're getting more of that reset and that culture. But a lot of points that Logan and Paul brought up are giving me optimism. I am feeling a little better about it. I'm glad I got to verbally process it and talk to people who are not students and not 12, 13 years old in the middle of the day. So I really appreciate that. And, we'll check. Same with Logan. Check in with me after a couple of games, and we'll see how it goes. But hopefully there's lots of W's, and hopefully, we see Austin win a cup or bring home some trophies, because that's what we want.
Yeah. Hopefully I'm making more Profe W emojis in some of our Slack chats there. So,
there you go.
Profe,
Let's go.
Really appreciate it, brother. Enjoy your weekend. Talk soon. All right, Paul.
Yeah,
what
man.
You got? Talk to me a little bit about where people can find you, what you guys got planned for the off season here on the Verde Pendant podcast. Because I know it's busy for both of us here. Sometimes you got to create the content, but not this week.
Yeah, well, right. And we just kind of let it write itself. But we're actually really excited because I think we're in the talks of finalizing our first kind of like in real life community hangout with the Verde Pendant listeners and followers. So we'll be posting that on our social media and talking about it on the episode in the coming weeks. But yeah, we're trying to do something maybe for like the MLS Cup final. I think it's December 13th or 16th. I can't remember the date off the top of my head. But yeah, myself and Logan Bartlett, we follow we do the Verde Pendant podcast, and that usually drops Thursdays. Occasionally on Friday, but yeah, my last thing that I wanted to say was I already am nervous about how the fan base is kind of ingesting this news, and I just want to remind folks because we've seen how it went through with the Wolff Out movement and all that stuff and the division there. I just want this to really, as much as it can be a movement for unifying the fan base. And I think I'm going to echo back to what Nico was saying in that 2-minute video, is that he wants to get to meet us and give us the opportunity to do that. So if you have the bandwidth as a fan to join a supporter group or something like that, that gives you that access to be able to like get in touch with him, the club in that way. Suggest you do that over the off season, because this is a new era, and I think it's important to go into it excited, but also with cautious optimism. But let's not go in, whacking at each other just for liking a guy or disliking a guy. But always got to follow our boys in Verde. So,
yep, absolutely. Words of wisdom as always from Paul. All right, man. We'll check in soon. Enjoy the weekend.
You do the same,
the Horns
brother.
Get back on track. I see that.
Hey, that's right, brother. That's
you gotta
right.
have some orange in your life, one way or another, right?
Exactly, man. Yeah, that's it.
All right, dude.
Take care, man. Thanks for having us on.
All right, everybody. Gonna go for a couple more minutes here, because look who's in the chat. You see E in there. E's gonna come on real quick just for a couple minutes, close out the live stream here. We'll get his thoughts. And while we wait for him, of course, now that we're in the off season, North End Podcast goes from twice a week to once a week. So Sunday evenings is when you'll see those episodes hit your feed, hit your YouTube. While you're here, right, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do that. It helps us grow the show. You hit the notification bell. That'll let you know either when a new episode pops up or one of these live stream kicks off, right? Big signings that come, super draft schedule release. We'll be here live breaking it all down. If you're coming in from Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, wherever, follow us there. If you're watching on Instagram, all that stuff helps us grow the show. And the best way to support us, you can actually support us financially by downloading the audio versions of all of our episodes. And that's the best way to support us in that regard. Let's see. So I'm communicating with my esteemed co-host here. Let me see who all is still hanging out here. There's Harry, non-Austin FC fan. It's a disappointing hire of Nico. Okay, so Harry's maybe a little more positive on this. And Harry, how's that spoon staying down there with you guys in Texas Ring of Fire, huh? All right. Yeah, George says we need some E energy up in here. So E, there he is. What's going on, E?
Hey, ask and ye shall receive.
Yeah. Well, I know you've been busy at work as most people are here today on a Friday. So limited time probably for you to digest all of this, but we've got our new coach, used to be our Texas rival. Now he's our boy. The general consensus is, I think, hesitant at best. But what's your take here? Again, generally more positive in the North End, but what are you thinking?
I mean, I think the underwhelming kind of reactionary takes are totally fair, and I think that falls directly on Roto really hyping this up. And there wasn't a whole lot of need to do that. You weren't getting type of difficult questions. Like he went out of his way to kind of say, that nice little quote that we like so much there, you want to know, and like things like that. But it's just like, if this was what came down the pipeline, then I don't understand what the other 24, 25 options potentially were. I don't know if I'm repeating what other people have said here, because like I said, I had the stream on mute while I was in my meeting there. But I'm gonna walk into it with the same approach that I've had with anything that Roto's done thus far, and trust that he has a vision in mind and that he has a plan in mind, and we're going to move forward with it and usher in this Austin 2.0 phase. So, to say that I'm not like thrilled, I think is fair, because again, the expectations seemed very high, and, we're sitting at the last game there, and Damon's talking about potentially getting Pep over here and how we can
giving
work
Pep
that
the
out.
minority ownership.
Yeah, giving him a stake,
right?
and then I'm like, oh, 7 beers deep. Like I could see that happening. So, the expectation bar was just really high, and we'll see what he's got. And I'm going to give him a fair shot, and we're going to keep rolling with this thing, baby, because it's VHLM.
And look here, Profe says he went from a 1 out of 5 stars to 2. After spending some time here in the North End. So that's the North End effect. You come in, you leave a little bit more positive.
There we
go.
go.
You got to see our buddy Adam in here. Good to see Adam. It's been a minute, my friend. Mason says he doesn't know if his body's ready to handle the roller coaster of this offseason with the deadline day, expansion draft, all of that stuff. And here's Adam says, I can only hope his Spanish fluency can get Driussi back on track. Second biggest waste of cap in 2024. Therefore, impossible to move. Got to bounce back next year. Yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of guys need a bounce back year or just to improve on what they've done, their resume here in Austin. But again, like we mentioned on the stream, like we talked about for weeks and months, right? We've been eyeing this winter window where kind of the maximum flexibility, at least relative to the windows that Roto has been here prior to this one. There's a lot of stuff he can do. So there you go. Good to see Ben in here too. 1 to 2 is 100% improvement. North End effect. So glad you got to hop on here for a second, E. I was telling everybody earlier, we're going Sunday, our normal time. We'll recap all the rumors of the week, the 4 contract extensions, right? And talk more about the Nico Estévez hire. We appreciate Profe for the pronunciation guide, as always. Anything else for you before we shut it down here on our Friday afternoon?
No, sir.
All right, everybody. Appreciate you tuning in, sticking with us, whether you caught it live or on the replay. Again, download all of our episodes in audio format to support the show. Follow us wherever you found this stream from. It helps us grow the podcast, helps us grow this little project, trying to give all of our Austin fans a place to read and react to all of this Austin news, the big news when it breaks. So enjoy your weekend, everybody. We'll do the same. We'll see you back here Sunday evening for another episode of the North End Podcast. Till then, easy. And I'm Zach. Vamos Austin FC, everybody. Victory song?
Welcome to the North End where the passion's running high. We're here to talk football, Austin FC, alright. ZG and E will take you on this ride. Week by week, side by side. It's action 1, 2, 3. We're the rowdiest in town. The Pirates game and Uncle Dave and Big Fudge all around. We sing our songs, we chant as one. Through thick and thin, the match day's just begun. In the North End, we stand together. Through every game, through any weather. From the first whistle to the final blow. The North End will never let go. Under the lights of Q2, our home, our sacred ground. In green and black, we fight, our voices loud and proud. Driussi's magic, Bacardi speed, Stuva's saving grace. With every goal we score, the lights turn verde, it's our place. So knows the mastermind, building our dream. Dan rules everything around me, as he strengthens our team. Let Roto cook